Rebel. Reject. Create.
Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and welcome back to Rebel, Reject, Create podcast. And my guest today is Binnaz Cubukcu, a leader and AI advocate with a diverse background in retail and corporate environments, including IKEA. And she is, above all, eager to explore AI's transformative potential. So hello, Binnaz, and welcome to the podcast.
Hello, David. Lovely to be here.
Now, when I think of corporate, the last word that comes to mind to go with that also begins with C, and that's creativity.
Yes.
As someone who therefore is clearly interested in creativity, how do you juggle that corporate and creativity?
Okay. Tough question at the first second. People think that corporate life brings a lot of restraints and constraints, and you have to deal with rules and regulations and policies, etc. How I looked at it in all my corporate life is that actually those frames give me more freedom because I can find different ways of moving around and achieving what I'm set out to do within those frames. So everyone thinks about thinking out of the box, but sometimes thinking in the box actually makes you more creative because you have to come up with a solution.
That's a great answer. And actually segues quite neatly into AI, which of course, algorithms are just a set of rules and commands, you could say. And now that's something you've dived into in great depth over the last few years.
Yes.
Why? What is going on with you and AI?
Well, I've been doing my master's on AI in the past 2 years. And what I realized is that as humans, we love to associate ourselves with non-human beings or non-beings. So when a dog comes towards us wagging its tail, we associate an emotion, a human emotion, to an animal behavior. And say, oh, he's so pleased to see us and let me cuddle. Well, it is the same. It's happening exactly the same way to AI. So we are associating our human emotions, human thoughts, and to AI. And looking at AI, we think, oh my goodness, Terminator. But it is not like that. AI is just a machine and a set of code.
Right. So can it be creative then?
It can and it can't. I think it is a very interesting area to dive into because if you look at the process of creativity, you need certain skills as a human also. How your creative process works, the thinking, the emotions, the connections. You have to have information, you have to have knowledge, you have to have experience, and the chance connections you make and the chance aha moments that come out of that makes you creative. But it's not only that part, it's also your emotions, it's about your expectations, it's about wishes, dreams, etc. So it's a whole lot of things. Now with AI, you don't have those emotional, very human qualities, but you have brilliant pool of knowledge, which carries sort of experience as well, because it's out there, and an enormous complexity of making connections and new patterns. So in a way, it has a creative process and it can follow that. But when it comes to the emotional side of it, the human side of it, doesn't.
Right. So one of the key things about human creativity that people often talk about is the capacity to be within a data set, within a pattern, and then pull a data node from an unrelated one. And by doing that, make a connection that results in a whole new way of thinking, a new way of doing things. Now, obviously, AI is trained on a huge number of data sets, but is it capable, based on even the most sophisticated prompt, of doing something like that?
Yes. That's the whole idea of AI.
Right.
So that's the beauty of AI. We are, as humans, we are limited with our knowledge. We are limited with our, we are in a way limited by time and effort to make those connections.
Mm.
Now, AI gives us that time back because it sits on the wide amount of information and it can just do those calculations so quickly. Whatever we will have to do for our research, etc., for a couple of days before we can even start our creative process,
Right.
it can do it in a matter of seconds, minutes, let's say hours, to give us that time to kick off our process a little bit earlier.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, it's horrible. I mean, which is interesting, right? Because I think a lot of people have a reaction to that where it's kind of just doesn't feel right that that's true. Because I think we have a lot of myths about what creativity is and isn't. And the idea that an algorithm can crunch away on a whole bunch of data in a few hours and be as creative as Leonardo da Vinci, it just sounds all wrong to us.
It is, but at the same time, creativity is perception, isn't it? What you call creativity may not be creativity for me, or how we look at creativity can be very, very different. So that's the beauty of it. And having a tool like AI as your collaborative partner can be a very, very interesting thing to have in that process, because sometimes, you know what I remember, and I might be wrong, you will know it better than I do. Is it called the rubber ducking or something in advertising? In the 80s, most probably.
Uh,
People used to have their little rubber ducks by their computers or by their projects, and
yeah,
if they couldn't find anyone else around to bounce ideas off, they will talk to the duck so
right.
that they hear themselves and they sort of take that as an input to their creative process.
Yep.
Now the duck can speak back and
Right.
with more information or faster processing capability.
Yeah.
So if you think about it that way, it makes sense, because AI also hallucinates. I mean, everything that AI generates is hallucination, but it is trying to do good and trying to make us happy with what it creates,
Right.
what it gives us as output. So all in all, it will give us some nice answers or nice starting points that it would take us a long time to do it ourselves.
Right. Right. So from that answer, do I understand you correctly then that you are seeing AI at the moment as a tool in a creative process or an actual creative agent in its own right?
I would say it's a tool. It's a companion for
Yeah.
me, um, because it will always need prompts. That's the difference.
Right.
That's the biggest difference. Now, our creativity happens intuitively, happens logically, happens mechanically. If you're a very kinetic person and you work with your hands, that's also a very creative process, but you do it with your hands. I'm a thinker, for instance. I think first, I imagine, and I think about the processes, the details, and then my sort of creation process starts,
Hmm.
making it tangible. For instance, my partner, Dorian, he works with motorbikes. It's always the hands first. If there's a problem, his hands actually start thinking, let's say, and then he finds solutions. So we're all different. We all use our body, soul, everything differently. And that's the beauty of creativity. It just happens, right?
Yeah.
With AI, you have to ask it to start doing something that resembles to creativity.
Right. So it has no intentionality. There's no intent to go out and be creative. It needs a prompt.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, AI doesn't sit like, what do I do today? Shall I be creative? There's no such thing.
Yeah.
Someone with the intent of using AI in a creative process needs to say, AI, I need your help. Come and sit with me and be my guide or be my help.
Yeah. Now, you just very softly said something very interesting in that in your previous answer. Does something that looks like creativity.
Ah.
Explain.
AI imitates.
Right.
So again, it's this association. We associate our thoughts, how we want to see certain things like humans on AI. So that's the thing. So
Right.
AI doesn't think itself, but it imitates what thinking looks like. It's the same with creativity, because it makes nonlinear associations very fast, and that's a part of creative process, isn't it? It's the capability, and AI carries that capability.
Right.
But it's an imitation because it can't just sit and do it itself. We have to say, I'm looking for this, I need this, can you do it for me?
All right. Because I was just going to say, like, if I imitate Andy Warhol, no one's going to mistake me for being that creative. So why would we mistake AI for being that creative if everything it does is just an imitation?
Yeah. But I mean, the chance happenings occur in what AI does as well, because
Right.
it's all about chances.
Right. Because it's actually making predictions, right? It's not really giving us answers.
Exactly. So it connects different pieces of information in many different combinations and permutations, and suddenly something very unexpected comes out. It's just like our brains work.
Right.
But sitting in a massive information lake of information, of course, it might generate some things unexpectedly in a shorter period of time.
Right. So does it matter whether it's really being creative or not?
For me, it matters
Why?
because it's the thrill of the chase. And I always believe that every individual is creative one way or another. The creativity is unfortunately associated more to arts and fashion and those kind of things. But even if you, I don't know, tidied up your room and arranged it in a different way, that's also creativity. It's an expression of yourself in an unexpected way, in an interesting way, in a way that you show yourself, you show your character, you show your thoughts, you show your feelings in whichever shape or form. And that's a very human thing. And I like that. So I think it's very important, because there's also this feeling of, I've done something, this smile on your face. And if it's reciprocated by others, oh, that's like cherry on top.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. So what are the chances then that in the not too distant future, so say the next 20 to 30 years, that the advances in AI, which seem to be going so fast, will result in it being more readily recognizable as true creativity? Or is the intentionality problem insurmountable? It cannot be overcome.
No, it's a collaborative model that we should be thinking with AI. It will never be an independent, creative thinker until it reaches the
AGI.
AGI or sentient. When it becomes sentient, it's hundreds of years away. So
right. So that's an interesting figure, because I've heard that before, right? So that we are hundreds of years away from general artificial intelligence, i.e. sentience. And even with the pace that generative AI is evolving now, you still believe that figure is pretty accurate.
Yeah, it's long way ahead, away from us.
Okay. So until we hit general AI and sentience, the chances of AI being what we would recognize as truly creative is nil or small.
I can't truly creative is a question mark. I can't say that it will be truly creative, but it's for sure carries some of the components of being creative.
Yeah. No. Well, I mean, if there's one thing these interviews have taught me is that a large amount of what AI is doing is exactly the same as what we do in our brains when we join the dots to come up with new answers to questions.
Yes.
Just because we are not always aware of how we are joining those dots doesn't excuse the fact that it looks very much the same.
Exactly, exactly. And the thing is, we carry a lot of bias in a way.
Mm-hmm.
We carry our own thoughts and things. One of the very small exercises I do with groups on creativity is the apple test. Maybe you would know it. So individually, they have to draw apples, as many apples as they can in 3 minutes, let's say. But each apple needs to be different than the other. So once they've done that, and everyone moans about it, it's like, oh, then you put individuals into smaller groups, they share their apples, and then you task them to create another set of 50 totally new apples, which will still be different to each other, but also to the apples that have been created. So the whole idea is you have to get what you think you know, your conditioning out of your head before you can start becoming creative. So the 50 apples is the
It's the
little
easy answers.
spark that starts your creative journey, not the first 30, 40 you've done. That's all in your head already. You're already conditioned to think all about that.
Right.
And when you start thinking and collaborating and looking at, oh, this can't be, but how about we twist it? And oh, how about putting a different dots there, etc. Then the creativity starts, right?
Right.
So AI can help you get this conditioned images out in a very fast
Yeah.
span of time. Then you start thinking and talking and going into the true creative process.
Right. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
It makes me think of that stupid social media meme where it was like, this is your comfort zone inside this circle, and out there is where the magic happens. And
Yeah,
it's the same with creativity, right? You got to get out of the circle of the comfort zone before interesting things can happen.
exactly. Because we will think, oh, we will list all the apples, etc. And I tried it with Chat GPT. So I had Gemini, I had Claude, I had Chat GPT, and I asked them the same questions. I gave them the same prompts in this. Gemini was very playful, but it just went off. And I'm saying, but it went just off, but it's good because that's what you want in creativity.
Yeah.
You have to go crazy. Claude was very serious and he took every step very seriously and very logically. And of course, ChatGPT can create also images. So when I asked it to create the images of the first step and then the second step, then the first step apples were almost similar to what I've seen in human
Right.
exercises. So it's like, yeah, it is imitating human information because it is fed by human information.
And I think that's a very good thing for us to remember, of
Yeah,
course, that it's made by us with our thoughts.
exactly.
All right. What would be your closing, most important message you'd want people to leave with regards to AI and creativity for the future?
It is not an either or thing. We can both exist and we can both help each other. And it's just how we look at things. Some people will say, you know what, I'm so good at doing this task, specific task. I don't need AI because it just comes and I enjoy the process. Let me be. And then I really truly don't like doing my budget planning, for instance. I hate it. I know I have to do it. Maybe AI can help ease the pain. So there will be those people who would pick and choose where they use AI. And there will be also, or there are already, some people who would use AI as a collaborator. So yes, I love this process. I enjoy it very much. But what if I bring in the power of AI into this? What would happen? We work on it together.
Right. What if?
Exactly. And it pushes actually me to think even more clearly, because I have to be very clear about my intent, my purpose, so that I feed or I ask AI the right questions and the right wishes for it to come back to me with what I'm after.
Yeah, fantastic.
So it's that, and it's I was listening to some jazz the other day, and it's not totally pure in my head, but let me have a go at it. Maybe we'll find. It's like improv jazz.
Yeah.
So what happens is that musicians feed off each other. One throws a riff and someone picks on it and they create the melody. And sometimes riffs fly around and nothing comes out of it.
Yep.
So if you think about AI as the one which generates these riffs and just throws at you, and you pick and choose because you have the intention, you have the purpose, and you have the whole package with your experience, knowledge, etc., you pick what is worth turning into a melody. Then making jazz together. But it's still improvised.
That's fantastic. I love that image.
Yeah.
Binnaz, thank you so much for coming on for the show and having this chat with me. It's been a lot of fun having you here.
It was a pleasure. Real fun. Thank you.
For all of you listening to this, if you want to find out more about Binnaz and her work, you can check out her links in the show notes underneath this interview. And remember to rebel and to reject so that you have room to create. Until next time, ciao.
Bye.